He stopped his car in the pouring rain, and the girl he pulled from the street vanished before he could ask her name. Hours later, that same girl showed up at his mansion, wearing his company's lost employee badge. Who was she, and why did she already know everything about him? Maya sat by the corner of Fifth Avenue, knees drawn to her chest, her threadbare jacket soaked through. Her hair clung to her cheeks, and her hands trembled as she tried to light the tiny candle she'd found in a trash bin earlier that day. It was her only comfort, a small flame she used to pretend was warmth. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. She hadn't spoken to anyone in a week. And tonight, she wasn't sure she wanted to wake up tomorrow. That was when the black car stopped. Not the kind of car that belonged in her world. This one gleamed, even under the rain, tinted windows hiding whoever sat inside. The engine hummed like restrained power, the kind of sound that made people move aside. Maya flinched when the door opened. A tall man stepped out, his tailored coat cutting clean lines against the storm. His shoes splashed water as he walked toward her. Even through the blur of rain, she could see the sharpness of his features, controlled, cold, almost too perfect. "Hey," he said, his voice low but commanding. "Are you all right?" She blinked up at him, confusion clouding her hunger-dulled mind. "Do I look all right to you?" she whispered, her tone brittle, defensive. Something flickered across his expression. Not pity, but something quieter. Something like recognition. He knelt down, completely ruining his expensive trousers. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Maya looked away, ashamed. "The streets are home enough." He studied her face for a long moment. Then, without another word, he stood, opened the back door of his car, and extended a hand. "Then let me change that." Her first instinct was to refuse. People didn't help without wanting something in return. Not in this city. But something about his tone, the stillness behind his words, made her chest tighten. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. "Adrian." He paused, rain dripping from his hair. Adrian Wolf. The name hit her like a memory she couldn't place. Famous, familiar. And then it clicked. The billionaire CEO whose company's skyscraper towered over half the city. The man people whispered about. Ruthless in business, unreachable in life. And yet, tonight, he was offering her a hand. Maya hesitated, staring at his palm. Clean, warm, safe. Everything she wasn't. But something deep inside her, the part that still believed in miracles, reached back. As her fingers touched his, the thunder rolled above them, loud and cinematic, as if the universe had just taken a photograph of that moment. The moment a billionaire's world collided with a homeless orphan's heart, and neither of them knew how much it would change everything. If you were Maya, would you have trusted Adrian's hand that night, or walked away? Tell us what you think in the comments. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I have missed you all, missed all the experiences we've had together. It's been a rough ride as we're currently battling some technical issues, but trust me, we're getting everything back and running. So stick around. I need your support on YouTube, now more than ever. Thank you specially for sticking around to this very moment. The mansion on Hillside Crescent was silent when Adrian brought her home. It wasn't a home, really, more like a museum of success. Every inch of it gleamed. Marble floors, glass walls, a grand piano that hadn't been touched in years. The only sound was the soft hum of rain against the skylight. The housekeeper, Mrs. Lane, froze when she saw the dripping girl standing beside her immaculate boss. "Mr. Wolf, shall I call security?" Adrian's tone left no room for argument. "No, get her a towel, some food, and something to wear." Maya's eyes darted around the massive space. Chandeliers that looked like constellations, paintings worth more than everything she'd ever owned. It was too much, too unreal. "I shouldn't be here," she murmured, backing up a step. Adrian turned to her, calm but firm. "You're cold, hungry, and exhausted. You should be here." His certainty startled her. She looked down at her torn shoes, at her reflection trembling in the polished floor. People don't just bring strangers home. He smirked faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. People don't usually live like I do, either. That night, she slept in a guest room bigger than any space she'd ever known. The sheets were soft, the air smelled of lavender. For the first time in years, she didn't wake up to the sound of sirens. Still, sleep didn't come easily. Her dreams dragged her back. To the orphanage, to the cold dormitory, to the day she ran away at 16 after the caretaker told her she'd never be wanted. The memory clung to her like smoke. Meanwhile, Adrian stood in his office, staring at the city through the glass walls. His reflection looked back, a man with everything money could buy and absolutely nothing else. He'd built Wolf Enterprises from the ground up, inheriting nothing but the debts his father left behind. The press called him a genius, a visionary. But what they didn't know was that every deal, every headline, every late night was just another distraction, a way to silence the echo of an empty house. He hadn't let anyone close in years. Not since Elise. Even thinking her name felt like reopening an old wound. She'd been the only person who'd seen beyond the money, until she left, choosing a quieter life over his empire. Adrian exhaled slowly. He'd stopped believing in softness long ago. So why had he brought a homeless girl into his home? The question lingered like smoke. By morning, Maya stood by the window, bathed in sunlight she hadn't seen in weeks. Mrs. Lane brought breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, fruit. She ate in silence, every bite tasting like guilt. When Adrian entered, she nearly dropped her fork. He was in a crisp suit, the kind that whispered wealth with every stitch. But his eyes, dark, steady, carried something unexpectedly gentle. "You look better," he said. She set the plate down. "Why are you helping me?" He studied her for a long moment before answering. "Because I've forgotten what it means to care. And I think you just reminded me." Her breath caught. He turned toward the door. "There's a spare room down the hall. Stay as long as you need. No conditions." "No conditions," she repeated, skeptical. "No conditions," he affirmed, though his voice trembled almost imperceptibly, as if he wasn't just offering her shelter, but asking her to unknowingly heal something inside him. That evening, Maya wandered into the library. Shelves upon shelves of books lined the walls. Poetry, history, business, art. One caught her eye. The Way to Kindness. She opened it to a page with a handwritten note inside. Even the strongest hearts need saving. The handwriting wasn't Adrian's. She closed the book quickly, her pulse fluttering. Who had written that? And why did those words feel directed at her? She didn't know it yet, but that line, that one forgotten note, would unravel the deepest secret Adrian kept locked away. Do you believe people from completely different worlds can truly heal each other? Or does love always need balance? Share your thoughts below. It started 3 days later. Maya had slowly begun adjusting to the mansion's quiet rhythm. The scent of fresh coffee each morning, Mrs. Lane's cautious kindness, the strange comfort of walls that didn't leak. She still fell out of place, but at least the hunger and fear were gone. She'd begun sketching again, small doodles on scrap paper she found in the library. Drawing had been her escape as a child, her silent way of dreaming. But the peace didn't last. That evening, Adrian arrived home earlier than usual, his jaw tight, his eyes distant. Maya was in the kitchen, helping Mrs. Lane chop vegetables when she noticed the tension in his movements. He didn't take off his jacket. He didn't speak. He just poured himself a glass of scotch and stared out the window. Mrs. Lane gave Maya a silent look. "Leave him be." But Maya hesitated. Something about the storm in his posture drew her forward. "Rough day?" she asked gently. He didn't turn around. "They're trying to take my company from me." Her heart skipped. "Who?" "Investors. Board members. People who smile at you while plotting your fall." He finally turned to face her, eyes burning. "I built everything, and now they want to strip it away because I refused a merger that would cost thousands their jobs." Maya stepped closer, uncertain. "You did the right thing, then." He almost laughed, a hollow, disbelieving sound. "Right doesn't keep the empire standing, Maya. Numbers do." Something about her name on his lips made her pulse quicken. But she held his gaze. "Maybe you're fighting for something bigger than an empire." He looked at her then, really looked. The wet shine in her eyes, the soft steadiness in her voice. And something inside him cracked. The next morning, Maya decided to help. She'd overheard Mrs. Lane mentioning a charity gala Adrian was supposed to attend that night, an event meant to restore his image and reassure investors. But Adrian had refused to go. I'm not parading my life for cameras, he'd said coldly. Still, Maya believed he needed to. So she did something bold. She found an old evening dress in one of the spare wardrobes, a pale blue gown, delicate but simple, and appeared at his study door that evening. Adrian looked up from his desk, startled. Maya, what are you doing? You should go, she said softly. Face them. Show them you're not afraid. He raised an eyebrow. And you're going with me, I suppose? Her lips curved slightly. Someone has to make sure you smile at least once tonight. For a moment, the great Adrian Wolf, the billionaire who owned half the city, was speechless. Then, slowly, he stood and offered his arm. You're impossible. I've been called worse, she replied with a small grin. The gala was breathtaking, chandeliers glittering like starlight, cameras flashing as soon as Adrian entered. But all the attention shifted when people saw her. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Who's the girl? She's not one of us. She doesn't belong here. Maya felt every stare like a knife. She wanted to disappear. Adrian noticed immediately. He placed a firm hand on her back, leaning close. Ignore them. You belong wherever you choose to stand. His words hit deeper than he realized. As they moved through the crowd, a man in a gray suit approached, tall, slick smile, sharp eyes. Adrian Wolf, he greeted, extending a hand. I see you found new company. Maya froze. The man's smirk made her stomach twist. Adrian's tone went ice cold. Watch your words, Mason. Relax, Mason said lightly. Just surprised, that's all. Never thought I'd see the great Adrian Wolf with. Adrian cut him off sharply. With someone who actually matters? The tension snapped through the air like glass. Mason chuckled and walked away, leaving murmurs behind. Adrian turned to Maya. I'm sorry. People can be cruel. She shook her head. It's fine. I've heard worse things from people who had nothing. But her voice trembled, and he noticed. Without thinking, he reached for her hand, steady, protective. Something electric passed between them. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The music swelled, soft and slow, and Adrian finally asked, Dance with me? Her breath caught. I don't know how. Then let me teach you. He guided her gently, his hand firm at her back, his eyes locked on hers. The world faded. The stares, the whispers, the music. There was only the warmth of his palm, the rhythm of their steps, the impossible calm in her chest. And just as she began to believe in the safety of his arms, a camera flash went off. The headline hit the next morning. Billionaire CEO seen with unknown woman. Is she his secret lover? Maya's image was everywhere. The same people who would ignore her on the streets now dissected her face online. Gold digger, street girl, charity case. And by noon, Adrian's company shares began to drop. If you were Adrian, would you protect Maya, even if it meant risking everything you built? Your company, your name, your legacy? Let us know what you would do in the comments. The following days were chaos. Adrian's PR team called nonstop. The media spun wild stories, tabloids speculating that Maya was his mistress, social feeds mocking her clothes, strangers turning her life into entertainment. And Maya hated it. She tried hiding in the library, hoping the noise would fade, but even the silence there felt heavy now. Every time she turned on her phone, one Adrian had given her for safety, she saw her own face staring back from headlines she never asked for. Billionaire's mystery girl. From the streets to the penthouse. Who is she? It was supposed to be a night of courage. Instead, she had become a scandal. That evening, Adrian found her outside in the garden, sitting on the stone bench near the fountain. The city lights blinked faintly beyond the trees. You shouldn't be out here alone, he said quietly. She didn't look up. Maybe I'm used to it. He sighed, taking off his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. You shouldn't have to be. Her throat tightened. They're saying horrible things about you. About me. I've survived worse, he said, sitting beside her. The world loves to talk when it doesn't understand. She turned to face him then, eyes glassy with hurt. You should have let me leave when I said I didn't belong here. Adrian's jaw tensed. You think I regret helping you? I think I ruined your life. He met her gaze, steady, sincere. You saved it. The words lingered in the air between them, fragile and real. In the days that followed, Adrian's company held emergency meetings. Investors whispered about his distraction. His board demanded damage control to issue a statement denying any personal connection with Maya. He refused. When his lawyer confronted him, he slammed his fist against the desk. "She's not a lie to clean up. She's a person." The lawyer frowned. "And what is she to you, Adrian?" He paused, the answer burning at the back of his throat. Too raw, too soon. "She's someone who reminds me what it means to be human." Meanwhile, Maya began helping around the mansion, organizing books, cooking with Mrs. Lane, watering the plants. It gave her peace, but it also stirred something deeper, a feeling she didn't understand. She began noticing small details about Adrian. The way he rubbed his temple when he was stressed, how he always stood at the same window at sunset, his quiet habit of checking if she'd eaten before he did. It was dangerous, because her heart was beginning to betray her. One night, she wandered into Adrian's office while cleaning. Papers were scattered across his desk, financial reports, letters, old photographs. One photo caught her eye. Adrian as a young man, smiling with a woman who looked like the one who wrote in that book, The Way to Kindness. Her name was scribbled on the back. Elise, the same woman whose name Adrian had once whispered in his sleep. Before Maya could put the photo back, Adrian entered. His tone was sharp. "What are you doing in here?" She froze. "I was just cleaning. I didn't mean to." He stepped forward, took the photo gently from her hand. His voice softened, but his eyes were haunted. "She's someone I lost a long time ago." Maya's chest tightened. "You loved her?" He hesitated, then nodded. "More than I thought I could love anyone." The air between them turned heavy, filled with unspoken pain. She swallowed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." But before she could finish, Adrian surprised her. His voice broke slightly. "She was the only one who ever saw through the walls I built." Until now, their eyes met, and for the first time, neither looked away. That night, unable to sleep, Maya sat by the window of her room, thinking about everything he'd said. She pulled out her sketchbook and began to draw. Adrian, standing beneath the rain the night he found her. But this time his face wasn't cold. It was human. A tear fell on the paper before she realized she was crying. She didn't know what to call the feeling rising inside her, gratitude, tenderness, or something far more dangerous. Meanwhile, across the hall, Adrian stood alone in his study, holding the same photo of Elise. For years, he'd lived surrounded by success and silence, certain that no one could reach him again. But now, there was a girl sleeping in his house who made him want to try. He walked to the window, watching the faint light from her room flicker across the garden. And for the first time in years, Adrian Wolfe smiled, a real fragile smile. But peace never lasts long. The next morning, a black envelope arrived at his office, marked confidential. Inside was a photo, Maya, standing by his gate at night, and a note. "Do you really know who she is? Would you keep trusting someone you cared about if the world started planting seeds of doubt about them? Tell us how you'd handle it in the comments." The envelope changed everything. Adrian stared at it for a long time, the note trembling in his hand. "Do you really know who she is?" He'd received threats before, jealous rivals, disgruntled investors, but this felt personal, too specific. That evening, he summoned Maya to his study. When she walked in, the air was heavy, different. Gone was the softness in his eyes. He held the photograph up between them like evidence. "Who took this?" she asked, confused. "That's what I'd like to know," Adrian said evenly. "But the better question is, why would someone send it?" Her brows furrowed. "I don't understand." He studied her face, searching for something, guilt, fear, a lie. "Maya, is there something you haven't told me?" She froze. "What do you mean? Your past. Where you came from. You said you grew up in an orphanage, but that's all I know. And now people are digging. They're saying you might not be who you claim to be." Her breath hitched. "Who are they?" "Someone sent this," he said, holding up the photo again. "And I can't ignore it. My company's at risk, my reputation." Maya flinched. "So that's what this is about? Your company?" Adrian's tone softened for a moment. "It's about trust." Her eyes glistened. "You don't trust me." "I want to," he said, pain flickering behind his composure. but I've seen too many people wear masks. Maya's voice broke. And you think I'm one of them? Silence. She stepped back, tears spilling freely now. You found me starving in the rain, Adrian. If I wanted something from you, don't you think I'd have asked for it by now? He looked away, the answer buried in guilt. She turned toward the door, voice shaking. You brought me here to feel safe. And now you're the one making me feel like I don't belong again. The door slammed behind her, echoing through the empty mansion. That night, Maya disappeared. Mrs. Lane found her room empty the next morning. The bed neatly made, the sketchbook gone. On the dresser was a folded note. Thank you for showing me kindness. I won't be a burden anymore. Adrian read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper than the last. He didn't go to work that day. He didn't pick up his phone. He just sat on the floor of her empty room, staring at the imprint her pillow had left on the sheets. For years, he built walls so high that no one could touch him. Maya had broken through them in weeks, and now she was gone. 3 days passed. He sent his assistant to search the shelters, the hospitals, the streets. No sign. Every night, he drove through the city, headlights cutting through the fog, looking for her face among the forgotten. Then, on the 4th night, he found her. She was sitting beneath the same bridge where he'd first seen her, the same candle burning beside her, its flames small against the wind. He pulled the car over and ran to her. Maya. She looked up, startled. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed red. Why are you here? Because you shouldn't be, he said, kneeling in front of her. You shouldn't have ever been here in the first place. She shook her head, voice raw. You don't get it, Adrian. I lived my whole life waiting for people to leave. You just did what everyone else does. You doubted me. His voice broke. I was scared. Not of you, of what I was starting to feel. Her gaze flickered. And what was that? He hesitated, and then the truth tumbled out, heavy and trembling. That I'm falling in love with you. The world stilled. Rain dripped from the bridge above them, echoing softly. Maya stared at him, this powerful, broken man confessing the one thing he swore never to feel again. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Then why does it hurt so much? He took her hands in his. Because love's messy, Maya. It doesn't make sense. But it's the only thing that's ever made me feel alive. But just as the tension between them softened, headlights flashed. A black car pulled up behind Adrian's. From it stepped Mason, the same man from the gala. His smirk was gone now, replaced with cold calculation. Touching reunion, he sneered. Too bad it's built on lies. Adrian stood. What are you doing here? Mason pulled a file from his coat pocket. Thought you'd want to know the truth about your little street angel. He tossed it toward Adrian. Inside were printed documents, adoption records, police reports, and a photo of a teenage girl in handcuffs. Maya. Maya gasped, stumbling back. No, Adrian, it's not what it looks like. Mason's grin widened. She ran away from the orphanage after being accused of theft. And the man she allegedly stole from? My father. Adrian's breath caught. That's impossible. Maya's voice trembled. I didn't steal anything. He tried to hurt me, and I ran. They blamed me to protect him. Adrian looked between her and Mason, torn between 2 truths. Mason stepped closer, eyes glinting. You're a fool, Wolf. She played you perfectly. Adrian clenched his jaw. Leave. Mason chuckled darkly. Don't worry. The board will know by morning. Let's see how long your company survives once they find out who you've been sheltering. He walked away, leaving silence and rain in his wake. Maya turned to Adrian, desperate. Please, you have to believe me. He wanted a god. He wanted to, but the doubt clawed at him again, cold and cruel. He took a step back. I need time. Her heart shattered. Time. Maya, please. No, she whispered, shaking her head. I thought you saw me, Adrian. Not the stories. Not the mistakes. Me. And before he could speak again, she was gone, disappearing into the storm, leaving him with nothing but the echo of her name in the rain. That night, Adrian sat alone in his car, drenched and trembling. The photograph of her, the one from the black envelope, lay on the passenger seat beside him. He tore it in half, then whispered into the darkness, I believe you. But by then, she was already too far to hear. If someone you loved was accused of something dark from their past, would you defend them without proof or protect yourself from heartbreak? Back-end index pointing down, tell us where your heart stands in the comments. The headlines hit like thunder. Billionaire CEO Adrian Wolf linked to fugitive woman with criminal past. Wolf Industries faces internal scandal after mysterious leak. Within hours, every news outlet carried the story. Adrian's empire, the one he'd built from the ground up, trembled on the edge of ruin. The board called an emergency meeting. Investors threatened to pull out. The stock plummeted. And Adrian? He sat in silence at his desk, the city lights blurring through the rain outside his window. He'd spent years earning the world's respect, only to lose it all in a single day. But it wasn't his company he mourned. It was her. Across town, Maya stood by the window of a small, dimly lit apartment. She'd found temporary work in a flower shop, the scent of roses and lilies mingling with her tears. She didn't read the news. She didn't need to. She knew what Mason had done, and she knew what Adrian must think of her now. Every night, she'd close her eyes and whisper into the darkness, "I didn't steal anything. I didn't." But her voice was drowned by memories of him saying he needed time, of the way he'd looked at her like she was both everything and a threat. She pressed her palm to her heart. Maybe I was foolish to believe love could change someone like him. Weeks passed. Adrian's world grew colder by the day. His assistant resigned. His investors walked away. Mason, now a newly appointed board member, seized control piece by piece, smiling all the while. Still, Adrian refused to defend himself. He refused to speak against Maya. When a reporter shoved a microphone in his face and asked, "Did you know about her past?" he simply said, "Everyone has a past. Not everyone has a chance to rewrite it." The internet buzzed with theories, scandals, rumors, but none of it mattered to him. Because without her, none of it meant anything. Then came the final blow. That night, Mason called a press conference. Standing beneath a canopy of flashbulbs, he delivered the coup de grace. Effective immediately, Adrian Wolf has been suspended as CEO pending investigation. Wolf Industries will undergo leadership restructuring to protect our shareholders' interests. Adrian watched it live from his office. The same office where he'd once dreamed, planned, built, now stripped of everything but regret. He rose slowly, his reflection staring back at him through the glass. For the first time in years, he saw not the billionaire, not the CEO, but a man who'd lost himself trying to control everything. He whispered to his own reflection, "You wanted power so no one could ever hurt you again. But love made a fool of you." He turned off the lights and walked out, leaving the empire behind. Maya heard the news 2 days later. Her hands trembled as she watched the screen in the flower shop. Adrian Wolf steps down. Those words hit her harder than she expected. She sank into the chair, clutching the apron against her chest. He lost everything. Mrs. Lane, the housekeeper who had once been her only friend in that cold mansion, appeared at the shop door later that evening. Her eyes were red from tears. "Maya," she said softly, "he's gone." Maya's heart dropped. "Gone? What do you mean?" "He left the city last night. No one knows where he went. He didn't take his phone, his car, nothing." Maya's breath hitched. "No, he wouldn't just disappear." Mrs. Lane took her hand. "He loved you, Maya. That's why he's gone. He couldn't bear the world without you, or the weight of what they did to you." Tears streamed down Maya's face. "I never wanted him to suffer for me." "Then go find him," Mrs. Lane whispered, "before it's too late." The next morning, Maya packed her sketchbook, her worn shoes, and a scarf Adrian had once given her. She didn't know where to start, but something inside her told her where to go. The ocean, the one place where everything had begun to feel real. It took her 3 hours by train, then another by foot. When she reached the cliff overlooking the sea, the wind whipped her hair across her face. And there he was, sitting at the edge, staring at the waves below, lost in thought. She called out, voice trembling, "Adrian." He turned, slow, almost as if he thought the sound was a dream. When he saw her, his expression crumbled. "Maya." She ran to him, breathless, tears falling freely. "Why did you leave?" He shook his head, voice low. Because everything I touch falls apart. The company, the people I care about. She knelt before him, gripping his hands. You didn't destroy me, Adrian. You saved me. You gave me a life when I had nothing. His voice broke. And what did I give you now? A world that hates you. Her answer was simple. You gave me something real. He stared into her eyes, the same eyes that had haunted his every sleepless night. Maya, I don't deserve you. Maybe not, she said, smiling faintly through her tears. But I still choose you. And for the first time in weeks, Adrian let himself breathe. He pulled her close, his voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I know, she murmured. So am I. As the sun began to rise over the ocean, painting the sky in gold and fire, Maya rested her head on his shoulder. They sat in silence, two broken souls, finally finding peace in each other's scars. For the first time, neither of them ran. If love meant losing everything you've built, would you still choose it? Backend index pointing down, share your thoughts in the comments. The morning air was cold and quiet as the waves crashed below the cliff. Adrian and Maya sat together for a long time, listening to the sound of the sea. Neither spoke, but in that silence, something changed. The bitterness that had weighed on Adrian's heart began to fade, replaced by something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Maya finally broke the silence. Do you remember the first night we met? He smiled faintly. You mean the night you nearly hit me with your sketchbook? She laughed softly, wiping a tear from her cheek. You looked like a man who owned the world but hated every part of it. He nodded. And you looked like someone who had nothing but still smiled anyway. They sat quietly for a moment. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out her sketchbook, now worn and water-stained. She flipped to the last page. It wasn't a drawing of the mansion or the city skyline or even her dreams. It was him, Adrian Wolf, sitting alone at a window, staring at the rain. But in the drawing, there was light breaking through the glass, a reflection of hope. I drew this when I thought I'd lost you forever, she said. But now I think maybe we both just needed to be found. He looked at her, his voice trembling. You believed in me even when I stopped believing in myself. She smiled gently. That's what love does. That night, they stayed in a small cottage near the beach. Adrian cooked for the first time in years, clumsily, burning half the toast, laughing when Maya teased him. For the first time, they didn't talk about business, betrayal, or the world's noise. They talked about dreams. Maya wanted to open an art center for orphans, a place where street kids could paint, sculpt, and find purpose. Adrian listened, eyes shining with admiration. Then we'll build it, he said, not as a charity, as a promise. She shook her head gently. You've lost everything, Adrian. He smiled. Then we'll start from nothing, together. Meanwhile, miles away, the storm inside Wolf Industries raged on. Rumors began to spread. Whispers of forged documents, illegal transactions, and boardroom deceit. Mason, once untouchable, started to sweat. An anonymous source had sent copies of his private dealings to the press. Offshore accounts, falsified signatures, and secret payoffs. His empire of lies was collapsing. And the strange part? The documents came from inside the company. Someone was helping Adrian. Back at the cottage, Adrian sat at the table, reviewing files on his laptop. Ones he'd secretly backed up before leaving. Every transaction Mason had forged, every email he'd hidden, all there, waiting to be revealed. He turned to Maya. I can clear your name. And mine. Maya looked at him with both fear and pride. Then do it. But promise me something. He met her gaze. Promise me you won't destroy yourself in the process. Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. No more running. No more revenge. Just truth. The next morning, Adrian made a call to a journalist who had once tried to expose him years ago. Mr. Wolf, the reporter said in shock. Didn't expect to hear from you. I made mistakes, Adrian said calmly. But the world deserves to know the real story. And who's behind it? He sent over the files. Everyone. By nightfall, the internet was in flames again, but this time the truth was on their side. Headlines read, Ex-CEO Adrian Wolf exposes corporate corruption scandal. Mason Kane under federal investigation for fraud and manipulation. Anonymous source reveals attempted frame-up against Wolf and Orphan artist. The world gasped. The man they condemned was now the whistleblower. The villain had become the hero. When the police arrived at Mason's penthouse, he tried to flee, but the walls had closed in. His accounts were frozen, his name disgraced, his empire gone. The same journalists he once manipulated now chased him with cameras, demanding answers. And in a poetic twist, his final downfall came from the one man he had tried to destroy, Adrian Wolf. Days later, Adrian and Maya returned to the city. They didn't go back to the mansion or the office tower. They went to a small art gallery on the corner of 8th and Main. It was filled with children's drawings, bright, colorful, and full of life. A hand-painted sign above the door read, "The Wolf Foundation for Creative Hearts." Maya's dream brought to life. As the children ran around laughing, Adrian stood in the corner, watching her with pride. She was no longer the homeless girl he'd found on the street. She was the woman who rebuilt his heart. That night, as they walked hand in hand through the city lights, Maya looked up at him and said softly, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night?" He smiled. "Every day. And every time, I thank fate that I did." She leaned into him. "Then maybe everything, even the pain, was meant to bring us here." He nodded. "To love, to purpose, to peace. Do you believe people deserve a second chance, even after the world turns against them?" Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The city buzzed with whispers. News vans lined the entrance of the Wolf Industries headquarters. The glass building that once symbolized Adrian's untouchable power, now glowing like a stage for redemption. Inside, the board had gathered for an emergency session. The tension was thick. Mason Kane had been arrested 2 nights earlier, but the company's reputation still hung in the balance. The boardroom, once Adrian's empire, was now a courtroom of judgment. The chairman cleared his throat. "Mr. Wolf, the press awaits your statement. The world wants to hear your side, if you have one." Adrian stood tall, his black suit crisp, his face calm. Maya stood beside him, not as the girl the tabloids once mocked, but as a woman radiating quiet strength. He glanced at her as she nodded. Then he turned toward the glass doors and walked into the press hall. The cameras flashed instantly. Microphones pointed at him from every direction. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Wolf, were you aware of the fraud under your management? Did you falsify company records? Is it true you fell in love with a homeless woman?" Adrian raised a hand, not for silence, but for truth. "Years ago," he began, voice steady but full of emotion, "I believed power was the only thing that could protect me. I built walls around my company, around my heart, and I thought success would keep me safe." He looked toward Maya, his eyes softening. "But then I met someone who had nothing, no home, no name, no safety net, and yet she had something I'd lost long ago, faith." The hall grew silent. Cameras zoomed in. "She reminded me that strength doesn't come from control. It comes from love, forgiveness, and courage to start again." A murmur rippled through the reporters. He continued, "Yes, I made mistakes. I was blind to the corruption inside my own walls. But I will not let innocent people suffer for the sins of the powerful." Mason Kane's deception was not just a betrayal of me. It was a betrayal of every person who ever believed in this company. He paused, then added, voice tightening with emotion, "And the woman beside me? The one the world called a liar, a thief, a nobody? She's the reason I'm standing here today, not to protect my name, but to restore the truth." Maya's eyes shimmered with tears. Adrian turned toward the cameras again. "You want his story? Here it is. A man built an empire and lost it all, but in losing it, he found his heart, and that heart belongs to her." The hall erupted, flashbulbs, gasps, applause, chaos. But amid the noise, Adrian only saw Maya, smiling through tears, pride glowing in her gaze. Hours later, the broadcast dominated every channel. Adrian Wolf returns, speaks out on redemption, love, and truth. From homeless to heroine, Maya Lee's journey captures hearts worldwide. Social media flooded with support. People who had once condemned them now defended them. Donations poured into the Wolf Foundation for Creative Hearts. The narrative had shifted, not from scandal to victory, but from shame to inspiration. That evening, the board called one final meeting. Mr. Wolf, the chairman said solemnly, given the circumstances, the majority has voted for your reinstatement as CEO. Adrian smiled faintly. I appreciate it, but I'm declining. The room fell silent. He looked at Maya, then back at the board. I've spent my life chasing power. Now I want to build something that gives power back to people who need it most. He slid a folder across the table. Plans for a joint partnership between Wolf Industries and the Wolf Foundation to fund orphan youth education worldwide. Maya placed her hand on his arm, smiling. This is the legacy worth keeping. The board members exchanged glances, humbled, moved. And for the first time in years, they applauded. Outside, as they left the building, the press waited again. But this time, the energy was different. Reporters called out, Mr. Wolf, Ms. Lee, what's next for you both? Adrian laughed softly, pulling Maya close. We're going to live, finally. Maya smiled up at him. And create something beautiful out of the broken pieces. Later that night, under the city lights, Adrian and Maya stood on the rooftop of the old mansion that once divided them. It was empty now, but peaceful. He turned to her. You changed everything, Maya. She shook her head. No, you just started seeing the world through love instead of fear. He cupped her face gently. I was terrified of losing control. But you taught me that real love isn't control, it's surrender. She smiled, eyes gleaming. Then surrender, Mr. Wolf. He laughed softly, then leaned in and kissed her. The city below lit up like a universe in motion. A billion tiny stars witnessing the rebirth of two souls who had once been lost in the dark. And for a moment, it felt like the whole world held its breath for them. Would you rather have power without love, or love that costs you everything? Share your answer in the comments. A year later, the world had changed for both of them. Not with noise, or scandal, or flashing lights, but with peace. The Wolf Foundation for Creative Hearts had grown beyond their dreams. Once a small art center for street children, it had expanded into multiple branches across the city, with programs in painting, music, writing, and film. Every wall was covered with color. Every child who walked in was given brushes, books, and a belief that their story mattered. And at the heart of it all, Maya, not the girl from the streets anymore, but the woman who had become the heartbeat of hope for hundreds of orphans. She stood in front of class, guiding a group of children through their first mural, a massive piece titled Home Isn't a Place. Paint splattered across her apron, her hair tied back. She looked radiant. From the doorway, Adrian watched with quiet admiration. He no longer wore expensive suits or gold watches. His hands were stained with paint, his smile easier, his eyes lighter. The man who once built an empire now built futures. When the class ended, the children ran to him, laughing, tugging at his sleeve. Mr. Wolf, did you bring the chocolate again? He chuckled. Of course. A deal's a deal. Hard work deserves sweet rewards. They cheered, swarming him as he handed out treats. Maya watched, her heart full. Later, as the sun dipped low and the last of the kids went home, Maya and Adrian sat on the porch steps outside the center. The city hummed softly in the distance. She leaned her head against his shoulder. You ever miss it? Miss what? He asked. The power, the meetings, the empire. He smiled faintly. I used to think power was about control. Now I know it's about impact. He turned to her. You taught me that. She laughed softly. Me? I just painted walls. He shook his head. No, Maya. You painted hearts. Silence fell between them, the kind that feels warm, not empty. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of paint and salt from the nearby sea. Maya whispered, You know what the best part is? What? That we didn't need to be perfect to be happy. He smiled. We just needed to be honest. That weekend, they held a gala at the center, not a corporate one, but a celebration of art and rebirth. Children performed songs, displayed their paintings, and shared stories of hope. When Maya walked onto the stage to give her closing speech, her hands trembled slightly. She looked at the crowd, donors, students, teachers, and then at Adrian, who smiled from the front row. I once lived on the street, she began softly, her voice echoing through the hall. I was invisible, forgotten, but someone saw me, not as a lost cause, but as a story worth telling. Her eyes shimmered. And now, I want every child who steps into this building to know, no matter where you come from, no matter what the world says, you are not your past. You are your possibility. The audience rose in applause. Adrian stood among them, pride and love written all over his face. After the event, they slipped away from the noise and walked down to the ocean, the same place where their hearts had first found peace. The waves rolled gently against the shore, moonlight shimmering across the water. Maya walked barefoot, her white dress flowing in the breeze. Adrian followed, his gaze soft, his heart full. When she turned, he held out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. Adrian! He opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring, elegant, unpretentious, glowing softly in the moonlight. I don't have an empire anymore, he said quietly, but I have a heart that belongs to you. Completely. Maya's eyes filled with tears. You don't need an empire, Adrian. You built something better, us. He smiled, sliding the ring onto her finger. As the waves crashed behind them, he whispered, "Marry me, Maya." She nodded through her tears. I already did, the moment you chose love over fear. He pulled her into his arms, their laughter mixing with the sound of the sea. The world around them faded into silver and gold, a picture of love not born from luxury, but from the ashes of brokenness and the courage to begin again. Weeks later, their wedding was held right there on the beach. Only friends, children, and a few people who had walked their journey with them attended. No headlines, no media, just love. As they exchanged vows, the sunset painted the horizon in colors no artist could capture. Maya whispered, "You saved me from the streets." Adrian smiled. "No, you saved me from myself." They kissed as the crowd cheered, a soft, timeless promise written in light. That night, as the stars scattered across the sky, Adrian wrote in his journal, something he hadn't done in years. I used to chase perfection. Now I chase peace. I used to count profits. Now I count smiles. And somewhere between loss and love, I found the only thing that ever truly mattered, her. He closed the journal, set it beside the bed, and turned to Maya, asleep beside him, peaceful, beautiful home. He whispered into the quiet, "Thank you for showing me what real wealth looks like." The waves outside whispered their eternal rhythm. And in that melody of love, forgiveness, and second chances, their story finally came to rest. Not in riches, not in revenge, but in redemption. If life gave you a second chance, would you choose love even after losing everything once? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might just inspire someone's tomorrow. And if this story touched your heart, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.